Start with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you take roll, please? Baker.
President Tevitt. Present. Dawson.
Here.
Huesera. Present. Tarika.
Present.
Stumeyer. Excuse Shannon Peters.
Yep. She's having a wonderful time with grandkids. Okay. I can't make the motion. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 4, need a motion to approve the June 12, 2018 regular meeting minutes.
Motion.
Second.
And a thank you to Mary Jo.
She did a good job, didn't she?
Mhm.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And 5, public comments. We have no
Seeing
public.
no public.
Seeing no public, we'll go on to item 6, which is an RFP for an auditor.
Last year around this time when we entered into for last year's audit, we discussed the possibility of going up for a request for proposal for a new auditor. And at the time I said, let's wait till this year, so it's this year.
Yeah.
So I do have a proposed request for proposal in the board pack. I've run this by our accountants. And he concurred that a 3-year period would probably be a good time period to shoot for. I think I've got a list of about 4 or 5 auditors that have done other libraries, so I've got a group of people that we can request. I do have a current auditor on that list as one of the possibilities, so we can continue to explore whether or not.
How much does it cost currently? About 5,000?
5,000.
That's what I thought. I thought it was about 5,000.
Yeah, maybe more than that. I have to look at that. Does anybody have the budget we passed last?
I probably do, actually.
Okay.
That's one that's attached to my stuff.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. There should be a line item for audit. I think it went up because we had to get more funds.
Oh, that's probably right. No, I can't see. There it is, 9,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it's,
It's worth doing.
mhm. So I guess what I would like tonight would be a motion approving by for the audit.
I think, all right.
Come on.
You got it.
So move.
Did I hear the motion, because I just got here?
It's a motion to put an RFP out for auditor, because we haven't had a new auditor since we've started as a district library.
okay, so who made the motion? You?
A second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 7, COZAD Rotary Grant Agreement.
also in the report, yeah. I discussed this at the last meeting, that the Cosette Board had granted us $50,000. In exchange for that, they want the opportunity to be able to meet at our library. This is a letter showing, giving us that grant, and it's a little bit of a letter of understanding. And Mary Jane Dawson met with one of the Cosette Board members, and I met with him to kind of go through this to make sure that
Everybody's
was-
interests were covered.
yeah. And so what the Cosette Rotary Board is looking for is a motion tonight that we accept this letter.
I make a motion that we accept this agreement with Rotary and their generous donation.
Discussion. Anyone? Okay, all in favor? Oh, you were gonna say something?
I just wondered, do we send a thank you note?
Oh, yeah.
And we let them check out books.
For free.
They can all have one.
That, they didn't ask for no fines ever for
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 8,
It's very, thank you, Mary Jo, for
yes.
Yes.
working to get that to happen. It's very generous.
So committee reports, 8A is building.
Well, we had 2 meetings since our last meeting, and I'm gonna apologize in advance, I am a little bit brain dead. Summer reading is in full swing. We had a meeting on 6/21, and we approved the Festival Bowman, Lytle and Hart bid for the elevator. And the O'Neill folks gave us a control estimate on where we are on budget, and I believe at that time, I don't remember now, I don't know if I wrote that down. I think we were finding ourselves a little higher on electrical, plumbing, and HVA than we wanted to, but we decided to have them go out for the bids for the other stuff. And I wasn't at the bid opening meeting, I don't know how long that lasted. I didn't ask anybody.
I came in late.
Did anybody attend that long meeting? Mary Jo, how long did it last?
Didn't last that long.
Oh, that
The
was
The
hour.
steel
So
bid.
that was short.
yeah, that was short, okay. I'm getting see, I told you, I'm brain dead.
I think at the 21st, we had,
Lytle and Hart would have been masonry.
masonry.
Otis would have been the elevator.
Which we actually didn't approve until the.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Fessler and Bowman, sorry.
That's when
Yes.
Bowman was
Yes,
foundation.
thank you. Should let you do this.
Actually, I wouldn't have remembered those. Because I wouldn't have needed it. Walt was in attendance.
There was some conversation, that I think everybody should know that the law has changed regarding prevailing wage, and public projects do not have to be the prevailing wage as they used to be. So, we did not require that, or say anything about that one way or the other in our bids, if I'm understanding for the next round of bids. And we came with a consensus to bid out the rest of the projects. I think that's all from that meeting. And then then there was the opening of the steel, that wasn't here for that one either. On 6/29 meeting, we recommended and awarded the steel contract to Steel Supply and Engineering. And it is about $123,000 over our budget, but considering the tariff issues and how that's affecting steel, that was still really good, we thought. So, and then we also talked about the areas where we were over on budget, such as lighting fixtures and things like that, which Dan can elaborate where that is. And we had a motion for the, well, why do I have that on this meeting? Motion on,
We
Oh, this
We need to
elevator.
delay voting on it.
because
oh, that's
we want
right,
some-
okay,
We
my
want the info on
apologies.
whether or not.
The Otis elevator, we didn't delay, we didn't bid on that, we didn't motion,
Didn't award.
we didn't
Didn't
award
award.
that one until the 29th.
We're waiting to see if we agree to fit into the elevator and that.
Right.
There were also, there's been a few issues between Hennessy and, do I say you, or do I say your engineer? Us.
The royal we.
Yes, we.
The Beckman Raider is our civil engineer and landscape.
Do you want to, given my current state of mind, do you want to go into that a
Brief
little
synopsis,
bit?
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So just to sort of piggyback on a few things that you said, you covered most of it. And the control estimate, there were two major items, or two of the largest items that were over budget was the lighting fixtures and the HVAC, and so we've already made some adjustments in trying to reel the lighting fixture package back in. We have issued an addendum. The rest of the building is actually out for bids right now, and so we've issued an addendum that have addressed some of those issues even before it went out on the street. So we've addressed that. The site construction we had submitted, that was bid out several months ago, and as you can see, we have a hole. Bigger hole. And we're making progress. The drawings were submitted to the city for plan review, gosh, I don't know, way back, 2 months ago or more than that. And we received a plan review letter. We resubmitted some revised drawings in response to that, and we received a letter of approval from Hennessy Engineers on May 30th. As far as saying the project was approved. As part of that approval, they had requested some language be added to the drawing sets that required the engineer of record, which is Beckett and Rader, which is us, to certify that the drawings, certify that the project was designed to meet in accordance with the Belleville, City of Belleville standards. That is problematic for us and our engineer from a professional liability standpoint. So we knew that was going to be an issue. We immediately contacted Mary Jo with some alternatives. We've been dealing with this now for
Alternative language.
Yeah. For a month and a half now practically. And had suggested some modification to the language that was conveyed to Hennessy and the city, which they rejected. And so we've been trying to resolve it. We've had some meetings with Mary Jo and the library's attorney. Mary Jo had crafted a letter with some other alternative language, 2 options that we sent to the city, and the library has not heard back on what was going to be acceptable. What the engineer was asking was essentially that we would produce 8 more sets for their use during construction with this added language included on the drawings. And that certification is problematic. One of the items that Mary Jo in her letter to the city had said, Mary Jo had, and Sharon, I believe, had a meeting with the city manager and the building official to discuss it. One of the suggestions was to instead of requiring the engineer to certify, that the Belleville Area District Library would certify, and that was certainly reasonable for everyone concerned. But we're still kind of waiting on a response to that.
What is the value of this certification? I don't understand that.
The value?
Yeah.
Well,
Why
from
does Hennessy?
why are they requesting it?
Yeah, that's what's confusing.
It's not, it's kind of a little bit of what I can call kind of a CYA clause in a short form. What,
Don't put that in the paper.
yeah, don't put that in the paper.
Educate me, right? Educate me.
So, as part of the normal process, you develop construction drawings, you submit them to the city city does their plan review to confirm that the project conforms to all codes and ordinances, and they issue a building permit once they've satisfied themselves that the project meets their ordinances. So in this instance, dealing with site construction and utilities, the city has a consulting engineer, Hennessy, that does that plan review for them and assists the city as if they were staff in doing that review. So Hennessy has done that review and has sent us a letter stating that the design is approved. But they basically added this caveat, in my opinion, is the certification to say, essentially, is if they miss something, that we're stating that the project still is going to meet all of their standards.
When you say standards, you mean ordinance?
Different. So ordinance pertains to site plan approval, like building setbacks. This is
Building?
engineering standards
Okay.
that pertains to how one installs a water main or a sanitary sewer or a storm sewer. And part of the city standard or the municipality standards are engineering drawings that actually show catch basins and pipes and all of that kind of stuff. And those standards that were provided to the project team from the city have been incorporated as part of our construction documents. So it's all been incorporated in all of that. But the issue, so I think in Hennessy asking for that to be put on there is really just a catch-all to state that this project will comply with the city's requirements.
Is Hennessy setting up us to be totally there for the entire construction? Which,
That's a separate issue as far as
okay, that's a
inspection.
separate issue, but are they does it seem like they're setting us up for that?
Not in this issue. That's a separate issue
Okay.
that we've discussed.
All right.
The certification language, the reason why it's onerous, and actually in their approval letter, there were 3 separate paragraphs of language that they wanted placed on the drawings. The first one was written in all caps, and that is the one that's onerous, which they required, Beckett and Rader, our civil engineers, that read, I'm paraphrasing, that certifies that the project conforms to the city of Belleville standards and as approved by Hennessy engineers or something to that effect. There's a second paragraph that relates to private utilities, which we don't think is an issue or not of a concern. We don't have an issue with that. The third paragraph, short sentence, is a request that the engineer certify that the set of drawings that the 8 sets that we would submit are essentially duplicate copies, exact copies of what they had already reviewed and approved. The issue there is they don't want to have us make changes to the drawings and send them back to them without them being aware of it. We have no concerns with that. We can certify that the drawings we're going to give them are identical copies. That's factual. We're not concerned about that. The first paragraph is the onerous part that is problematic. Reason why it's problematic is that the city standards, and this could be true of many municipalities, but certainly is true of the city of Belleville, their standards aren't published. You can't go online, you can't go to City Hall and find them in a book and anything like that. It's just their standards. And so in developing this project, our engineers working with us and the city, and the city's engineer, they said, well, you have to conform to our standards. We said, fine, what are your standards? They said, here they are. So they've given us their standards, which include a checklist of requirements and these drawings that Hennessy prepared maybe years ago for the city as defining the city standards. So they gave us the standards. We, being us, Daniel Zermatt, and our engineers, have no way of knowing if they gave us all of their standards or if they just gave us some of their standards. But we've taken what they've given us and we've incorporated it into the project. So we had suggested alternative language, something to the effect of, and this is legalese, but to the best of our knowledge, information, and belief, we've complied with the standards provided to us at the date of design. It's usually, attorneys, you understand this stuff, right? In that, we found that a reasonable alternative language to place on the drawings. They rejected that. So and the concern is this project is a 20-month project. The city is entitled to change their standards at any time. And so, by placing that language saying the engineer certifies that the project complies with the standards, if they change the standards, what that does is we're being put in a position of guaranteeing certifying is equivalent to warranty or guarantee from a legal standpoint. And so the issue is we're guaranteeing to the library, essentially, that it meets the standards. If the city changes their standards, the city's going to, regardless, the city is going to make the library's project comply with the standards. There could be a cost involved if those standards change or something was uncovered that was missed, and it could be an increased cost. We don't want the library to come back to us and say, you guaranteed this was going to comply. That's the issue. So it's a professional liability issue for us and our engineer. It is legally, it's changing the standard of care by which professional services are provided by requiring us to do that, and we can't do that. And so our professional insurance company has gotten involved, and because we told them this is a serious issue that is potentially going to delay the project, they've taken it very seriously. They have engaged an attorney for us and our attorney has talked to the library's attorney, because the concern is if the project is delayed, delays can cost money, and so this can become a more serious issue than what it is. Right now, it's just kind of on paper and some posturing between, I guess you could say, us and our engineer and the city's engineer. But it's putting us in a position where our professional liability insurer won't allow us to do that. And because it does change the standard of care. From the library's perspective, what any professional liability insurance insures against negligent acts. Mm-hmm. And this is not us agreeing to design to beyond the standard of care is not negligent. And so our insurance, if there was an issue that were to come up, our insurance would not stand behind us and cover that because of the fact that we went beyond the standard of care that would have been forced upon us by the city's engineer. That's why we've kind of said we can't do this. But the day I got this information, I wrote Mary Jo an email and with some suggested alternatives. So we've been on this since day one, but unfortunately it's still unresolved. And part of it is and I told Mary Jo that this is a difficult thing because we can't comply. The city's engineer is sort of refusing to budge on it. It puts the library in a position that they're stuck and that they can't really affect the outcome. And so I've been trying to find an alternative solution that works for everybody. Meanwhile, O'Neill wants to get on with the construction. And the issue that's delaying that is essentially the city's engineer, in order for the site work to progress beyond what you see out there, at least dealing with storm sewer and sanitary sewers, there must be a pre-construction meeting held with the city, with all the kind of relevant parties, so the engineers, the city, and the various trades that are involved in that, so they kind of get on the same page as how the city and their engineer wants the project to go. Hennessy is essentially refusing to schedule that pre-construction meeting until they have these 8 sets of drawings in their hands with the language that they've required.
And do I understand you correctly that you have never, in all your years of being an architect, got service requirement?
That's correct. So neither us or Beckett and Rader have encountered this. On the flip side, Hennessy has advised everyone that this is the same language that they've been using for 17 years for all of their municipal clients, which I think mostly are Southeast Michigan. So that may be true. There may be other professionals who are willing to basically take that increased exposure and risk to their liability coverage.
Sounds like a control issue set up by Hennessy, and it's costing us money.
We're at the cusp of it potentially costing money if we have construction personnel on site on a daily basis with the goal of them making productive progress, and if they're stalled, O'Neill's not going to pull their people out and put them on another job. The risk is we're going to sit there and pay those people's time and not get anything accomplished. So it is becoming a greater sense of urgency. So so we had met with Mary Jo and the library's attorney, and was Sharon involved? I don't remember now. That was a couple of weeks ago. They kind of talked about how we should address this. And so we've been working on it, and then I think on Friday, the library's attorney reached out and contacted the city's attorney and sent a letter. And so I also met today with Rick Rutherford on another matter related to the project, and we discussed this thing briefly. And I think we have, Rick and I at least discussed verbally a reasonable solution. He was actually comfortable with the Belleville Library being the certifying party because it accomplishes what they need. And I told him we have no issues certifying that the drawings sets that we're going to give them are this identical copies. I'd actually talked to Rick on last Friday as well and learned that one of the other reasons Tennessee's reluctant is they didn't have these 8 sets of drawings that they need. So I talked to Mary Jo. We were trying to save printing costs to the library, but we went ahead and printed 8 sets without the language they
That's
requested. Well, they're the site package, so not as thick, but still, it's a cost of. But compared to paying the attorney, it's probably not as.
Relative.
That was where Mary Jo and I reached on Friday. So we delivered those drawings to the city Monday morning, and Rick told me today that Tennessee stopped by and picked up those drawings. So they have the 8 sets, but they don't have the language that they wanted.
Isn't part of Rick's job giving Hennessy guidance? Telling them what we need? I thought, I had that impression.
Well, O'Neill has, and Matt Ratzow and Dean Kukalis have been in on this whole entire time as well, communicating with the city. And a week or two ago, they had sort of requested, can we at least just schedule a pre-construction meeting so we can get on with what we need to do? We have materials coming on site, they're here now, they're ready to go. Let the certification issue kind of follow up as it gets resolved later. So the construction manager has been taking that approach, trying to get this thing scheduled, and thus far they've gotten no response or willingness to schedule the meeting. So I suggested to Rick when I talked to him today is we said that can't we just schedule the date, and can't he just request Tennessee to be present? I mean, they do work for the city.
Yeah.
Has anybody reached out to the mayor?
Not that I'm aware of. I guess that's been discussed, but I don't know if that's.
Because my
It might have been Sharon.
Diane
would be the person.
maybe.
well, I don't know that for sure, but
Yeah.
if something's going to happen, you may need to contact the mayor.
I know Mary Jo and I believe Sharon had a meeting with the city manager and the building official 2 weeks ago.
a
couple of weeks ago and shared the letter as the two alternative options that we thought were reasonable. So I had a good conversation with Rick today. He's very he very much is trying to work with the construction manager. So I think sees the big picture, wants to see this go ahead, but he's kind of but he's I guess following the lead of their consulting engineer.
Right.
And I guess if I had my way, I'd have him maybe give them greater direction.
Well,
That would help.
One
us move
of
forward.
my concerns is that nobody from the library is actually letting the mayor and or the city council know what's going on. They've all been behind this. And if they don't know that there's as much of a snag in the works, you know, we may not get any further. Like John said, Hennessy works for the city. And so the city manager, the mayor, the city council, whatever,
Mhm.
they could put pressure on Hennessy. And they may have that language, you know, they may have used that language before, but I also trust what you're saying, that you've never come across that.
I guess I don't understand, it seems like it's totally opposite. I would think it's the city's engineers who are certifying that their
Exactly.
that our drawings are up to their standards. They're the ones who know their standards more than anybody knows their standards.
That is the essential purpose of their plan review, is to ensure that the project as submitted is going to comply with the city's requirements.
That's what.
So they're asking, that's why I said this is a little bit of a catch-all, just to make completely clear, I guess from the library's standpoint, that the project has to comply. Everybody knows it complies. We're highly confident that it does comply. It's just, you know, we're kind of digging our heels in on each side about, crossing the
Possible
T.
liability.
Well, it is a liability issue for us if we were to agree to do that, and we can't do that. And our professional liability insurance and the attorney that's advised us says we absolutely cannot do that. So it does. I immediately recognized this as a kind of a red flag issue, and the position that it could put the library in, and not being able to resolve it on your own. So we've been trying to find alternative language. The engineer has been a little bit stubborn in being, I think, willing to consider some other approach.
So the
And we don't have any benefit to know what kind of communication has occurred between the city and their engineer. So we're kind of in the dark as far as
council
that's
or
concerned.
anybody.
So let me make sure I understand this, besides the language thing. If this pre-construction meeting doesn't happen, you guys have to stop working, or O'Neill has to stop working, because there's only so much they can do until this meeting takes place, is that correct?
Correct. Matt Ratzo sent an email yesterday or Friday, I'm not sure, just kind of I think it went to you, and I'm not sure who else it went to. But just saying, I think it may have went to the city as well, saying, can we get this scheduled? We're a few days away from being out of work. Now there's some other things that are happening. If you see the new water feature out there, I think one of the pieces of equipment ran over the water service to this building and created a little bit of a leak, so they got a repair job to do there. That's new added work that they can focus on, and they're doing some fill materials in our excavation. But if this goes a week or two as we try to get everybody's schedules to align, is going to create work stoppage.
I believe the city council meets next Monday, right, Rosemary? That's the third Monday.
Yeah. So I think, we opted to, as Mary and Joe and I talked, we opted to put 8 sets of duplicate drawings in the hands of the city yesterday, so we kind of removed that issue, and at least they'd have the sets to do what they have to do during construction. But until we can get that meeting scheduled, and, as I suggested to Rick, absolutely the sooner the better, because, we got to get on with the project, so. And I think he and I kind of reached sort of an understanding today with what I thought would be workable from our perspective, and what I think he thought would be workable from the city's perspective. I have no idea, knowing if that's something that Hennessy would accept, so that's between
So
the
the
city and
languages that the
MJ.
library would take would.
That was one of the options that Mary Jo put in her letter to the city. And Rick seemed to think, at least today when we talked verbally, he seemed to think that was a reasonable thing for the city. That sort of removes any liability issue for us, so we thought that was a good solution as well.
How much does that do for the library? Do we know?
From my perspective, it does nothing, because it's the library's project. If there's a change that needs to be made, the library is going to have to step up and make that change. Regardless of whether it was missed in Hennessy's plan review, and then they come back and say, well, we missed this, but you gotta do it anyways, and there's a cost to that, the library's gonna have to pay it. If a year from now, the city changes their requirements and wants a different kind of pipe, and that costs more, and, we haven't done that work yet, that, it's just, I think, part of building the building. But we're trying to guard against the library coming after us and saying, wait a second, you should have anticipated that the city was gonna change the requirements. That's the,
I did run this by the insurance agent as well, so.
Do most cities, well, I mean large cities, I know they probably have all this stuff online, or they have a big book.
I can't speak to whether every city has this published to where it can be known. That's one of our things is, we took what they gave us and we incorporated it in the drawings, and they reviewed it and approved it. Where's the problem? But if we're gonna be asked to essentially warranty or guarantee something, then, we can only warranty what we were given, or we can't even do that, but it's hard for us to kind of commit beyond, we've incorporated what you gave us as of that date. So anyways, based on my conversation today with Rick at 1:30, 2 o'clock, I thought we were over the hump. So I'll follow up with them again tomorrow, and I also copied Matt and Dina. I'm imagining they will follow up as well. So just a matter of whether we can get everybody to play nice in the sand.
We're losing this good weather. I mean, take advantage of it. And then I come here every day, talk to Dean, and I could see on his face how frustrated he was when we lost 8 to 10 days because of DTE showing up and doing the gas line, doing the power line. It took them, and we wasted these days.
Yeah, now is the premium
that's
time
simple.
for doing this kind of work when it's dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to be doing this in September.
Yeah.
But, we're having this conversation now just so the board is aware. It could be, as based on our conversation today, we've got it 99% resolved, but we'll know when Rick responds tomorrow. He was going to send me an email, or I guess said he was going to send it out to everybody, clarifying, I think, in his opinion, what he would think would be acceptable, and so that I was hoping by the time I got back to the
I
office.
would tend to agree with MJ on getting the city involved, the city council. I think they'll be the change agent in this whole process.
I would presume with, John Day acting as the library's attorney, having sent a letter to the city's attorney, that they will probably now be aware.
Okay.
That would be my assumption.
Okay.
So I think that's probably, I don't know if it's happened yet, but I would think that's coming if it isn't already on their radar. So that's that's probably the most pressing issue. Rick had told me and Dean had called me up, this might have been last week, but apparently DTE, just so you're aware, DTE closed down Main Street for doing some work related to the library and didn't bother to tell anybody. Dean called me up and said what they're doing. I said, as far as I know, they have no reason to be on Main Street. They didn't tell Rick Rutherford either, so he was getting calls from people saying, why is the Main Street being closed? Apparently they did some work. It wasn't part of the early concept plan that DTE provided us over a year ago or whatever it was. So I'm still not clear what they did or why they did it. But that apparently was something that happened. And in talking with Dean today, so right now DTE has, I think, the power rerouted. But there is still cabling going across our construction site, which is AT&T and Comcast, and Dean's been talking to DTE and AT&T and Comcast every few days and sort of coordinating with them. But they have to get in there and remove those as well to be able to give us a clear site. One of the things I talked to Dean about is DTE apparently, they've not relocated the power poles that are on our alley. They're going to move them from the south side of the alley to the north side of the alley. And talking with Dean earlier today, I said, well, you know, AT&T and Comcast can't move their lines running along the alley over until DTE puts the poles in. So talking to Dean, it sounds like DTE, and this is the difference between the engineers who we had dealt with initially and the guys who do the work. It sounds like they did the minimum of what they have to do, but it may not be what needs to happen in order for AT&T and Comcast to do what they got to do. So Dean's on it, he's working on it, but that's one of those things that are a little bit of added frustration in the whole mix. So, and why DTE was on the other side of Main Street and closing the road to drop some wires was sort of all news to everyone. So,
When was that?
Thursday? I think it was a Thursday. I think it was sometime.
Last week.
I think it was last week. It might have only been an hour or something, but you know, you close traffic on Main Street in any city, and without telling anyone, that raises eyebrows. And so I'm sure, you know, Rick doesn't like getting a phone call saying why they closed the street and he knows nothing about it. So I certainly am sympathetic to that. So Dean is on all of that. We're working on it. We have also, so we had a pre-bid meeting today for the rest of the building. Had a number of trades show up. That is all running smoothly, it seems. We've, as I mentioned, we issued an addendum. We have submitted the drawings, I think prior to us going out for bids, to the city for a building permit plan review. I don't remember the date we submitted, but they've been reviewing those. We've received a plan review letter from the third-party code reviewers with a number of comments, and we've responded to those. Most of them were easy answers or just directing them to where the information is in the set of drawings. But one issue that we discussed with the building committee is we have an issue with our curving stair in the stair tower as being too tight of a radius. So we, in a brief discussions with the building committee, we opted to develop a revised plan for the curving stair, kind of making it more into an oval, so that it would technically comply with the code.
Is that spiraling?
It's kind of spiraling, right. The issue is that the main stair, this curving stair, is not, the building is, it's not part of the required means of egress to get out and to exit the building. We have two fire stairs that provide the code legal means of exiting out of the building in an emergency. So we had thought that curving stair, since it wasn't part of that exit route, we had some liberty with that.
Is this a code or an interpretation?
Well, the radius dimension for it's a little bit complicated. I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but the radius, it seems to be a code issue. So as I reread the code, and part of the issue is we have a building that we built in 2008, 175,000 square foot, 4-story corporate headquarters building with a monumental stairs that's curving, just like what we have, with actually a tighter radius. It's been built. It passed through that code official in East Lansing, no problems. I've walked the stair, and it's perfectly safe to walk up and down. But in reading the code language, I can't find the words in there that would justify that we can do that. So we went ahead and decided not to argue that point with the code reviewer, and we revised the design. So I sent to him a revised plan on Friday, and he still has an issue with our landing, but he recognized that he's just a third-party plan reviewer who's going to write a report, that ultimately it was Rick Rutherford as the city's building official, his call to make. So that's why I met with Rick today to walk him through how we're interpreting the code. And part of what the plan reviewer is doing is he's recognizing, and it's somewhat legitimate, or it is legitimate, that is the main stair in the building that most people are going to use to walk up and down the building. And human nature is, in an emergency, you tend to kind of go out the door you came in on. So in his mind, people are going to use that stair, so he's interpreting it as a de facto means of egress. So that's part of his interpretation, or basis of his interpretation. So I had a good meeting with Rick. He's going to digest it. He's going to obviously have a conversation with the third-party plan reviewer, get his pros and cons on it, and I'm hoping that Rick will see it the way that we interpreted it.
But even though you're saying that it's that it's technically an oval, nobody's gonna know.
No, for the casual person, they're going to think it's a skirting stair, just as we originally had. It's so subtle.
It's not a square stair.
Yeah.
That guy.
Well, but if I was not persuasive with Rick, and he sort of chooses to take the interpretation of their plan reviewer, I think our only option is going to go to that straight run stair. And Rick told me today that he fully appreciates the design value and importance of that sort of monumental curving stair, and he agrees that putting a straight run stair in there would be less desirable as the building. So he's very agreeable. He just has to really spend some time, understand the issue a little bit deeper, and certainly has to have a conversation. As I said, I'm giving him my take on it. He's going to have to get the take from the plan reviewer, and ultimately, as the plan reviewer told me as we talked on the phone on Friday, he says, I don't have to convince him because there's no point for us talking about it, because Rick is the one who has the call. He's just writing a report, so which is true. So hopefully we'll see it. Otherwise, we'll have to make another change. But we're intending to put out an addendum this Thursday. We are holding it because we wanted to get any questions that came up to today's walkthrough. But we've revised the drawings already for the new stair, so it's kind of ready to go. We're going to issue that on Thursday, so Matt and his team can send it out to all the bidders. So we'll have this oval stair part of the bids when it comes in, and hopefully we can
And this
proceed with
bid
that.
package is the rest of the building.
It's everything else, and I think Matt said he's bidding out the asphalt paving now as well. They decided to go ahead and do that. So I think our current bid due date is the 25th. Unless we had to issue yet another addendum, which would probably require us to extend the bid date. Right now, I think we're on track for that. So by the end of the month, we'll ought to know exactly where we are budget-wise with the project. So that I think is good. So we can, know that hopefully, knock on wood, we're in good budget.
Yeah, the
situation.
bids are due on Wednesday, 25th.
Yeah.
The meeting, the opening will be at 1,
Correct.
starting at 1.
Correct.
That's the one that's gonna take forever.
It will, because we'll have a lot of bid scopes to read through. So that's kind of the status of the project to date. We received today another application for payment from O'Neill Construction, which, you know, we've received a few of them up to this point, you know, and this will be, from here on out, will be a monthly occurrence. And so now that we actually have a site contractor digging a hole there, they want to be paid for digging the hole, so this is a normal part of our process. What I would probably suggest, and this will be up to the board and the building committee and how you want to proceed, but most projects that we've done, we would typically schedule a building committee meeting once a month and have that meeting coincide with kind of what I would call an owner, architect, contractor meeting, where we would sort of review the monthly application for payment and have basically a short meeting that talks about the status of the work. There may be times where we can kind of tour the construction. So we've processed a few of the applications for payment up to this point, which were mostly O'Neill's, you know, services. But now we're starting to get into the trades, and I think it's appropriate that we have you know, the committee perhaps engaged in that. What we've done on other library projects, and I don't want to schedule a meeting tonight. I want to put this out there so you can be thinking about it. I think we can go ahead and process this pay after, not delay. But I think maybe by next month we ought to get into a routine of having a monthly building committee meeting. And often what we've done in the past is we know the contractors will bill through the end of the month, and so first week of the month, like we are now, maybe first or second week, we can coordinate this with O'Neill. But what we might do is pick a set date each month, first Thursday or second Thursday or whatever works for the building committee, and schedule that as our monthly building committee and owner architect contractor meeting. And what that allows is, you know, that gives the contractors a set deadline when they have to have their pay app in, and we know if they have it in by this date, we can review it and know that it's recommended its approval. The library can kind of review it as well and sign off on it, and literally in a week we could have a check cut. So it works very well on library projects to ensure that the contractors are paid quickly, which keeps their attitudes positive. So I want you to just put that out there. We can talk and maybe communicate by email as far as zeroing in on what would be a good day. It has to be a good day for O'Neill. It has to be a good day for our building committee members. And again, the other thing you can do, the board and the building committee can say, we're going to trust Mary Jo as staff to work with us, you know, to do this. It's all budgeted, right? So, but in most of my experience working with libraries, typically there's been you know, a monthly committee meeting that at least provides a bit of oversight to that.
And the pay application has two authorization signatures on it, Dan's signature and my signature. So
Right.
you do have two pairs of eyes looking at it,
Right.
but it would be good to have the extra
And
input.
in the way, and we've not scheduled formal site visits yet with O'Neill, and we need to, this kind of prompts that we need to do that. But typically what we're gonna do is, we're gonna come out and visit the construction site usually every 2 weeks. And so every other week is a monthly meeting that's a little bit more robust. And that's the meeting usually that if you wanted to, that would be appropriate for the building committee to sit in and just be updated on the overall status of the project. We talk about schedule, we talk about where we are with contingency, that the whole
Rosemary
manner.
will come because she wants to wear a hard hat.
There you go. Now we can do that. So on those in-betweens, and we're gonna be out here meeting with probably Mary Jo and Dean and Matt, and, you know, resolving issues as they come up, and so that's how projects typically flow. But probably now's the time. For next month, we should be planning to get into a regular routine. And as we go forward too, we'll take advantage of those regular scheduled meetings where we're gonna be looking at furniture. We were talking a little bit about furniture, so when we get in there, we'll be plugging into that. So some of those meetings might go a little bit longer than a normal construction meeting if we want to be looking at furniture selections and those sorts of things. So I just want to put that out there so you're mentally thinking about how and when we should try to schedule that into everybody's busy schedule.
And I'm wondering if we should try to coordinate that with our board meetings, so we will kind of know, have some discussion about what's going on, maybe prior to signing the checks, but going to meeting.
That's maybe not a bad, we might schedule the sequence to where the building committee, like if it's a Thursday, if that is a date that works for everybody. If we met the Thursday prior to the board meeting, that might be a very convenient sequence of events, so not a lot of time lags. So, we just have to, work that through with O'Neill and the subcontractors. You know, typically what they do in construction is, they always bill through the end of the month, but oftentimes what the subcontractors will do is they'll prepare their bills on the 25th of the month and sort of forecast what they're gonna get complete the last 5 days, and usually it's pretty accurate. And so there's a timeline between when it comes to us, we have to review it, make sure we don't have questions or concerns, and then we'd be ready to come to a meeting and be prepared to sort of sign off on all of that. But I will work with Mary Jo and O'Neill on timing for that and follow back up with you. I think that's everything I have.
We're on the building.
Okay. All right. Item B, 8B, bylaws.
I have nothing.
8C, finance. 8D, marketing.
Nothing to report.
8E, personnel.
No report.
8F, policy, I have no report. Okay, item 9 is approve accounts payable. Entertain a motion.
I had a couple questions. What's the Demco software?
It is room scheduling software and sign up for programming.
What number are you looking at?
Advanced? Is it advanced?
It's, yeah, we get,
What number are you looking at?
It's 4208.
we get the page.
On this Bring Our Boys Home ceremony, and we paid for that?
We are the holder of the grant money from the Cozad Foundation for that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that group does the research and we hold the records, the archival records that they've been getting
Okay.
here at the library. But we've been kind of acting as the steward of that money.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And what's the Wayne County Treasurer settlement? That's money we're paying Wayne County? 4193? You see how I
Which
look at-
page, where are you?
It's, oh, I'm sorry, it's,
Oh, yeah,
yeah, okay.
Monthly, we get a tax settlement statement from Wayne County. And sometimes we owe them money and sometimes they pay
This
us
is a
money.
big one, huh?
This time we owe them money. We have not had such a large payment in a long, long time. We used to have more of them back when the
Back,
the
yeah.
economy was bad. This one looks like a tax settlement with a major, and I can't remember,
Wayne disposal.
it might have been Wayne Disposal.
This is
The US, yeah. It was- yeah.
school. Got a huge.
Okay, so that was a one-time
Yeah,
issue. It's, you know.
significant,
But it was,
yeah.
Because I don't think, I'd have to go back and look, I don't know that we've owed them anything this last year until. So Usually they,
That's why
usually
it's a big one.
with that monthly settlement, we'd be getting little bits and pieces a month, like $475 and $230 and things like that a month.
So I make a motion to, approve accounts payable.
Second?
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item 10, director's report.
Don't have too much to report. I apologize, we do not have circulation statistics yet for June. I think our library network is still struggling through how to do reporting with the new system, so we're waiting for those numbers, so I should get it for you next month. And things are not, I kind of anticipated a little bit of a downward numbers because of the building project, but it's not as bad as I had feared. And if today was an example of a day when I think everybody has figured out we are indeed open during construction. It was a very busy day today. So.
In my place too. Oh my God.
The Fund Development Committee did meet a couple of times this past month, and they've been working on outreach to different individuals and organizations. Now that we have this COSAD grant, which is an amazing amount of money, I think we can publicize that, and hopefully they will be setting a good example for everyone.
This was a very interesting read.
Mm-hmm. The article that was in the Detroit Free Press. Yeah, just all of the services the libraries provide, frequently are a lifeline for people. This was specific about the Detroit Public Library, and kind of branched down into some other libraries as well, but.
I'm gonna send it via email to all these people I know who say, nobody reads books anymore. But I do have libraries, well, they do read books, and there are other reasons to go to a library.
Right. Any other questions?
I don't. Okay, 11, trustee comments. John?
I'd like, on these really, really, really hot days, I'd like to have a sign out there, come to the library as a cooling station, something like that. It's really obvious, okay? And also, this Thursday, again, music in the park. It starts at 7 till 9 at Horizon Park, and it's July 12th. And the name of the group is the Kielbasa Kings Polish Band, and it's obviously polka music. We're very eclectic.
I've heard them before.
Yeah,
But
yeah, the name slays me.
I just want to continue to thank the building committee for all of the hard work and the hours and time that they put into this. Seems like it gets more and more complicated every month. Appreciate it.
John Chiriga says very well at the last meeting, 117 hours.
Yep.
But you put that in perspective, that's 3 full-time weeks, really.
Unpaid.
why does it seem longer than that? Michelle? Okay.
I mirror Tanya's sentiments with the building committee, just thanking you for all the hard work, and not only the building committee, but the board as a whole. And thanks to Mary Jo and Joy for always having my back when I can't show up.
I didn't have it this time. Oh no, it's my turn.
Yeah.
I don't want to walk on over. I want to really thank Mary Jo. I am not regularly checking my emails. You could probably tell, and she has been like on it. She's poking around at every detail and making things happen. There's a lot going on, so you're doing a really good job. Again, special thanks to the building committee for their tireless commitment, and Dan also for always showing up at our meetings. And special thanks to Mary Jo as always, just truly dedicated, and appreciate you.
everybody for everything you're doing, no matter what it is you're doing. Yes, especially you, Mary Jo.
You can tell when Mary Jo comes back from a vacation, she's so mellow. Then 2 days later.
2 days later.
I put something in front of all of your spots. It's called
This is interesting, yeah.
Benches for Belleville. My understanding is, I don't know if this is true, but my understanding is that it's a Girl Scout troop that's doing this. There's a bucket on the circulation desk that has caps in it. I went through my recycling before I went out to the garbage to make sure I didn't miss anything.
A couple boxes probably.
And at Music in the Park on Thursday nights, the girls have a table they're collecting.
I know there's another bucket at Team Designs. I don't know if they're anyplace else. Be neat if there was one at City Hall. I don't know if they put one there, because I haven't been there lately, but, it's a good thing. John, you're up.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, meeting we adjourn.